The wind was cold and full of ash. Gray dust floated in the air like ghosts of a city that once lived. Broken towers leaned against each other, and fires burned in the distance. The war between humans and the Lyrans had ended 2 days ago, but the silence now was worse than the battle. Ethan Cole, a human soldier, walked through the ruins with his pulse rifle held tight. His armor was scratched and burned, and the white H mark of the human army was covered in dirt. He had not slept in 2 days. The only sound was the soft buzz from his scanner and the crunch of glass under his boots. "Sector 9 clear," he said into his radio, voice tired. The voice of his commander replied, sharp and cold. "Copy that, Cole. No survivors. Leave no one behind." Ethan froze for a moment. Leave no one behind. That meant no human survivors left to rescue. But it also meant something else, no aliens to let live. He looked around the broken street. Alien banners, half burned, hung from the walls. A broken toy made of blue crystal rolled under his boot. He sighed and kept walking, then he heard it. A soft sound. Not the wind. Not a falling stone, it was a voice, "Please." Ethan turned quickly, rifle raised. The sound came from behind a collapsed wall. He moved closer, slow and careful. His heart was beating fast now. The scanner showed a weak life signal. Small, not a soldier, maybe a child. He stepped around the rubble and froze. There, sitting in the dust, was a small Lyran girl. Her skin was pale silver with faint blue lines that glowed like tiny stars. Her big eyes were bright and wet with tears. She looked no older than 10. She stared up at him, afraid but too tired to run. "Can I please stay with you?" she said in a small voice. "My mother died today." Ethan felt his throat close. For a second, he forgot the war, the orders, the hate. She looked so small, so lost. He lowered his rifle slowly but didn't speak. His training shouted in his head, "Lyrans are dangerous. They kill from pity. Don't trust them." The girl shivered. Her hands were shaking. "Please," she whispered again. Ethan looked around. There were bodies everywhere, Lyran and human alike. Smoke covered the sky. He thought about his sister back home, the same small hands, the same scared eyes. "Where's your father?" he asked quietly. She shook her head. "Gone. Everyone gone." Ethan pressed his hand against his helmet. He should call it in. He should report the survivor. But if he did, command would send a drone strike. The war was over. No prisoners. No mercy. The radio crackled again. "Cole, status report." Ethan glanced down at the little girl. She stared back at him with eyes full of fear. He pressed the radio button. "Sector clear," he said. "No survivors." There was a short pause. Then the voice replied, "Understood. Move to next sector." Ethan turned the radio off. The girl blinked at him, confused. You won't tell?" He shook his head. "Not yet. But you can't stay here. They'll come back." She looked down, her voice trembling. "Then I'll die like my mother." Something inside Ethan broke. He knelt beside her and looked at her closer. She had scratches on her face and burns on her arms. No weapon, no armor. Just a small bag and a blue crystal pendant around her neck. "What's your name?" he asked. "Lyra," she whispered. He nodded. "Okay, Lyra, you have to be quiet and follow me." "Understand?" She nodded quickly, wiping her tears. Ethan looked around one last time, then led her through the ruins. He kept his rifle ready, checking corners, scanning for movement. Every shadow looked like danger. They passed a line of burned tanks, then moved through a broken tunnel that led under the street. It smelled like smoke and oil. Lyra followed close behind, her small footsteps soft against the metal floor. She didn't speak. Ethan found an old bunker door half buried under rocks. He pulled it open with effort and guided her inside. The air was cold and dry. It was an old human supply bunker, empty, safe, forgotten. Ethan set down his rifle and lit a small lamp. Lyra looked around, eyes wide. "Is this your home?" Ethan almost laughed, but it came out as a sigh. "No, just a place to hide." He gave her a ration pack and some water. She looked at it, unsure what to do. "It's food," he said softly. "Eat it. You'll need your strength." She hesitated, then began to eat slowly. Ethan sat down across from her, staring at the flickering light. The war was over, but now he felt something new. Not fear, not hate, but something heavy inside his chest. Outside, thunder rolled over the ruined city. The human army was still hunting. Ethan looked at Lyra, who had fallen asleep against the cold wall, clutching her crystal pendant. He whispered to himself, "What have I just done?" But deep down he already knew the answer, and he had saved her. And that choice was about to change everything. The night was long and full of strange sounds. The ruins above them creaked with the wind, and sometimes the ground shook from distant explosions. Ethan sat awake beside the small lamp, his rifle across his knees. The girl Lyra slept against the metal wall, breathing softly. He couldn't rest. His mind was full of noise, orders, guilt, questions. What had he done? He had lied to command, hidden a Lyran, and broken the one rule every soldier knew: never help the enemy. But when he looked at the girl, the word enemy didn't make sense anymore. Lyra stirred and woke up. Her glowing blue eyes blinked in the dim light. "It's morning?" she asked in her soft musical voice. "Almost," Ethan said. "You were safe last night." "That's what matters," she nodded slowly, hugging her knees. "You didn't sleep." "I don't sleep much anymore," he replied. "Too many ghosts out there." She tilted her head. "Ghosts?" "People I couldn't save," Ethan said quietly. For a long moment they both sat in silence. The air was cold and heavy. Lyra touched the crystal around her neck. It glowed faintly under her fingers. "My mother said this will guide me to safety," she whispered. Ethan frowned. "That crystal, what is it?" "It's part of my home," she said. "We Lyrans use them to remember. It keeps memories inside. Songs, faces, voices." He leaned closer, curious. "Like a recorder?" She nodded. "But it feels like heart memories. You don't hear them and you feel them." Ethan said nothing. He didn't understand her world, but her words made it sound beautiful. Suddenly the radio on his belt crackled. "Cole, report. You're overdue." Ethan froze. He lowered the volume quickly. Lyra's eyes widened, fear returning to her face. He whispered, "Quiet," then pressed the button and said, "Still checking debris. Radiation levels slowing me down." There was a short pause. Then the commander's voice replied, "Copy, don't take too long. Patrol's sweeping east. We'll burn the rest soon." "Burn the rest?" Ethan's blood went cold. If the patrol found the bunker, they'd torch everything inside, including Lyra. When the radio went silent again, he turned to her. "We can't stay here long. Patrols will come this way." She nodded, trusting him without question. He stood and began packing his gear. The bunker had a back tunnel, maybe leading to the lower sectors. He checked the scanner. No signals nearby. Lyra followed quietly, her small hands clutching the crystal. They crawled through the narrow tunnel. Dust fell from the ceiling with every step. Ethan went first, clearing debris. Behind him, Lyra whispered softly, strange Lyran words, like a prayer. After what felt like hours, they reached a small underground room filled with old supplies, food cans, first aid kits, and a broken heater. Ethan tested the air. "Safe," he said. Lyra smiled faintly. "You are very careful, human." "Soldier," he corrected. "Name's Ethan," she repeated it slowly. "Ethan," then smiled wider. "Thank you, Ethan." He tried not to smile back, but he couldn't help it. It had been years since anyone said his name like that. Gentle, kind, not like a command. He gave her a clean blanket and shared a small piece of dried bread. She ate in silence, then asked, "Why did you save me?" Ethan stopped chewing. "I don't know. Maybe because I couldn't let another child die." She looked at him for a long moment, then said softly, "Humans are not what I was told." "What were you told?" Ethan asked. "That humans steal, destroy, and burn everything they touch," she said simply. "My mother said to stay far away from them, but she also said one human was different, one with kind eyes." Ethan's heart skipped. "She said that?" Lyra nodded. "Before she died, she said, 'Find the human with kind eyes. He will keep you safe.'" Ethan looked away, unsure what to say. The bunker light flickered and the air hummed with quiet electricity from the crystal. Then one footsteps. Distant but clear. Heavy boots. Voices. Ethan's scanner beeped red. Patrol nearby. He quickly turned off the lamp and whispered, "Stay silent." "Don't move," Lyra froze. The footsteps grew louder. The voices were human soldiers. "Sector clear?" one said, almost. "Check the lower vents," another replied. Ethan held his breath. The soldiers were just above them. Dust fell from the ceiling as one walked over the tunnel. Lyra trembled, eyes glowing faintly. Ethan gently covered her hands. "Shh," he whispered. "They'll go. For a long minute, there was only the sound of boots and static. Then the voices faded. Ethan exhaled slowly. That was close. Lyra's voice shook. They would have killed me, he nodded. Yes, even though the war is over? He looked at her, pain in his eyes. For them, war never ends. She touched his arm softly. But you ended it, for me. Ethan didn't answer. He just looked at the small alien child sitting beside him, the glow from her crystal reflecting in his tired eyes. And in that quiet, hidden bunker surrounded by darkness and war, something impossible began. A small spark of trust between two enemies, a spark that could change everything. The world outside had turned quiet again. The sound of bombs was gone, replaced by the slow hum of machines and the distant crackle of fire. In the hidden bunker, time passed differently, slow, heavy, but strangely peaceful. Ethan sat near the broken heater, fixing his rifle. His armor was cracked and his hands were bruised, but his eyes were calmer now. Across from him, Lyra sat cross-legged, tracing glowing lines in the dust with her finger. Every line she drew shimmered faintly blue, then faded. What are you doing? Ethan asked, watching her. I'm writing names, she said softly. Names? Yes, the ones I remember, my mother, my friends, my people. When I write them, I feel they are still here. Ethan looked at the glowing dust. It faded quickly, but somehow it felt alive for those few seconds. That's beautiful, he said quietly. Lyra smiled shyly. Humans don't do that? He shook his head. We carve names on stone when people die. It stays forever, but no one really feels it. Lyra tilted her head. Maybe feeling is more important than forever. Ethan looked at her, and so young, yet she spoke with the calm of someone much older. Maybe war had aged her faster than time could. They spent the next few hours in silence. Ethan shared more food with her, and she asked endless questions about the stars, about Earth, about what humans dream of. What is Earth like? She asked. He smiled faintly. Blue and green. Sky like glass, water everywhere. Not like this dust and ash. Then why did humans leave it? She asked. Ethan hesitated. Because we wanted more. More land, more power, more everything. We thought we were saving our people. Maybe we just lost ourselves instead. Lyra didn't answer. She just looked at him with sad, understanding eyes. Later, Ethan decided to explore the tunnel farther to make sure no patrols were nearby. He told Lyra to stay quiet and wait, but as soon as he left, the silence grew heavy. She touched her crystal pendant and whispered to it in her own language. The crystal glowed, showing faint images in the air. Her mother's face smiling softly, saying words only Lyra could hear. When Ethan returned, he saw the faint light and stopped. What's that? Lyra turned quickly, startled. It's my mother. Her memory is here. He stepped closer. The image flickered and faded as he approached. You can still see her? Lyra nodded. Only sometimes. The crystal is weak now. It holds her last song. Her last song? Ethan repeated. She was a healer, Lyra said softly. Lyrans sing when we heal. The song is energy. It repairs what is broken. Ethan blinked. You can heal? Only a little, she said. My voice isn't strong yet. He stared at his scarred hand. Can you try? Lyra hesitated, then gently took his hand in both of hers. Her fingers were cool and light. She closed her eyes and hummed, a soft, shimmering sound like wind over water. The glow from her skin spread to his hand, warm and calm. Ethan watched as the small cuts on his skin faded. The pain was gone. He whispered, That's impossible. Lyra smiled faintly. Not impossible. Just different. Before he could say more, his scanner beeped. Movement, not human, something else. He motioned for her to hide behind the supplies. She obeyed without question. The sound grew louder, metallic steps like crawling spiders. Then he saw it. A drone, broken but still active, dragging itself through the tunnel. Its red eye blinked weakly. Ethan aimed his rifle and fired once. The shot echoed through the bunker and the drone fell still. But it was too late. The shot would draw attention. Pack your things, he said quickly. We have to move. Lyra looked at him, frightened. They will find us? Yes, the drone sends signals. They'll track it. They ran through the narrow tunnels, flashlights cutting through the dark. Dust rained from the ceiling with every distant explosion. As they reached the exit, Lyra stopped suddenly. Ethan, she said. Why do you help me? You could have left. He turned to her, breathing hard. Because you make me remember who I was before this war. Lyra blinked. Who were you? He smiled sadly. Someone who believed in saving lives. Then the radio on his belt came alive again. Cole, report! We picked up fire from your sector. You okay? Ethan hesitated, then replied, Just a malfunction. I'm heading back soon. Copy that. And Cole, HQ says the last Lyran child escaped near your area. Orders are to terminate on site. Lyra froze. Ethan's hand tightened on the radio. He turned it off slowly and looked at her. You heard them, she whispered. He nodded. Yeah. Will you still help me? Ethan looked at her glowing eyes filled with trust and fear. He took a deep breath and said, I didn't save you to give up now. Lyra smiled, small but real. For the first time, Ethan saw hope reflected in her light. As they climbed out of the tunnel into the cold night, the stars above were clearer than before, silent witnesses to something far greater than war. The bond between a human and a Lyran had begun. The night sky burned red again. Distant fireballs lit the horizon as if the world itself was remembering the war. Ethan and Lyra moved quickly through the broken tunnels, the cold air filled with dust and the smell of smoke. Every few seconds, Ethan looked back, his hand tight around his rifle, his heart beating hard in his chest. They had been running for hours. The destroyed drone signal would already have reached the patrols. Somewhere above them, the human army was hunting. Lyra followed close behind, her steps light and quiet. The glow from her skin was faint, hidden under Ethan's torn jacket. She didn't speak, but her breathing told him she was tired. Almost there, Ethan said. We'll find a safe spot soon. Lyra nodded weakly. You always say that, he smiled a little. Because I want it to be true. They climbed up a cracked stairway that led to the surface. When Ethan pushed open the metal door, a wave of heat hit them. The city above was in flames again. The patrols were burning everything left. Lyran nests, buildings, even shelters. Ethan scanned the area. We go north, he whispered. There's an old bridge there. If we cross it, we can reach the forest line. They began to move through the ruins, staying low. The sound of drones buzzed in the air. Sharp, mechanical, angry. Lyra suddenly stopped and touched his arm. Someone's coming, Ethan froze. He heard it too, the click of boots, the echo of voices. Soldiers, search everything, one shouted. No alien leaves this sector alive. Ethan grabbed Lyra's hand and pulled her behind a fallen wall. They crouched low as light beams cut through the smoke. The ground shook with each explosion nearby. Lyra's small hand trembled in his. Ethan whispered, Don't move. Don't make a sound. One of the soldiers came closer. His flashlight swept across the rubble, a few inches away from them. Ethan held his breath. Then from somewhere behind, a metal beam fell, making a loud crash. The soldier turned toward the noise. Over there. He shouted, running the other way. Ethan let out the breath he had been holding. Come on now. They ran through smoke and fire through the ruins of what used to be homes. The sky flashed as drones flew overhead, firing at shadows. Ethan pulled Lyra through an alley, his boots slipping on glass. Suddenly, a drone turned and spotted them. Its red eye locked on target. Ethan fired his rifle. 1 shot, 2, 3. Sparks exploded as the drone twisted in the air and crashed, burning, but more were coming. Run, Lyra, he shouted. Lyra ran ahead, her small figure glowing faintly in the smoke. Ethan followed, reloading his weapon. Behind them, the drones screamed through the air like metal hawks. They reached the old bridge, cracked, half-broken, hanging over a deep river of black water. The far end disappeared into fog. Ethan looked back. Go, cross it. Lyra hesitated. It's falling apart. It'll hold, move. She ran onto the bridge. The metal groaned under her feet. Ethan fired again at the drones, hitting one, but the others fired back. Plasma bolts hitting the ground around him. One hit close, throwing him off his feet. His arm burned. Ethan! Lyra screamed. He forced himself up, pain shooting through his side. Keep going! He yelled. Lyra turned, eyes glowing brighter. She raised her hands, and for a moment the air around her shimmered with light. The plasma bolt stopped midair, as if invisible walls had caught them. Ethan stared, shocked. What are you doing? Her voice was strained. Protecting you. The light from her skin grew brighter and brighter until it filled the bridge. The drones' sensors went blind, crashing into each other and exploding. When the light faded, Lyra fell to her knees, weak and shaking. Ethan ran to her, dropping his rifle. Lyra, hey, look at me. She opened her eyes slowly. I'm okay. He held her shoulders gently. You used your power. You shouldn't have. I had to, she whispered. They would have killed you. Ethan looked at the burning sky, then back at her. You saved me again, she smiled faintly. Now we're even. He helped her stand and led her across the rest of the bridge. The air on the other side was cooler, quieter. Beyond the fog, they could see the forest, dark, alive, and free. For the first time, Ethan felt hope. But it didn't last long. His radio crackled again, this time not just static but a familiar voice. Sergeant Cole, said the cold voice of Colonel Voss. We saw your little rescue show on satellite feed. Bring the alien in or don't bother coming back. Ethan froze. Lyra looked up at him, fear returning to her eyes. What will you do? She asked quietly. Ethan looked at the forest ahead, then back at the smoke behind them. He took a deep breath and said, We keep running. And with that they disappeared into the dark trees, hunted, wounded, but together. The fire still burned behind them, but in front of them the stars waited, silent, patient, and full of unknown hope. The forest was quiet, but not peaceful. Every tree seemed to listen, every leaf seemed to whisper. The night air was cold, heavy with rain, and the smell of burned metal still followed them from the city. Ethan and Lyra moved deeper into the woods, far from the firelight. Their clothes were torn and their faces were marked with dirt and exhaustion. For 2 days they had lived like ghosts. No radio, no fire, no sound. When dawn came, the fog was thick and white. Ethan found an old cabin half buried under vines. The roof had holes, but the walls still stood. It was better than sleeping on the ground. This will do, he said, setting down his rifle. Lyra stepped inside carefully, her glowing eyes cutting through the dim light. It smells old. Old means safe, Ethan said. She nodded and sat on the floor, curling up with her blanket. Will they still look for us? Ethan leaned against the wall, staring out the cracked window. They always look, but the forest hides better than I can. He didn't tell her the truth, that the army had heat scanners, drones, and satellites. They could find anyone if they truly wanted to. But something in him believed that this time, fate was giving them a chance. Lyra began humming softly, a low, beautiful sound that filled the empty cabin like wind through crystal. Ethan closed his eyes. The sound was warm, alive. What are you singing? He asked quietly. A lullaby from my world, she said. My mother used to sing it when I was afraid. Ethan smiled weakly. It's working. For the first time in many years, he fell asleep to peace instead of gunfire. He woke up hours later to a sharp metallic click. His eyes opened instantly. His hand went for his rifle, but it wasn't there. Looking for this, Sergeant? A deep voice said. Ethan's blood ran cold. In the doorway stood Colonel Voss, tall, armored, and surrounded by soldiers. His uniform was clean, his face calm and cruel. He held Ethan's rifle in one hand. Behind him, 2 soldiers dragged Lyra out from behind a wall. She was crying, struggling against their grip. Don't hurt her, Ethan shouted, stepping forward. Voss smirked. Relax, Cole, we're not monsters. Not yet. He tossed the rifle aside and walked closer. You've caused quite a mess, Sergeant. Hiding a Lyran child? Disobeying direct orders? What were you thinking? Ethan's fists tightened. She's just a kid. She's not a threat. Voss raised an eyebrow. Not a threat? That thing has power inside her that could destroy half our fleet. You saw what she did on that bridge. We have footage, Cole. Lyra shook her head, tears falling. I didn't mean to hurt anyone. Quiet, Voss snapped. You're a weapon, not a child. Ethan stepped in front of her. If she's a weapon, then why didn't she kill me when she had the chance? Voss stared at him for a long moment. Because she's not ready. But once we study her, we will be. Ethan's stomach twisted. You mean experiment on her? Voss's smile faded. You're a soldier, Cole. You know the price of peace. I know the difference between peace and murder, Ethan said through his teeth. Voss sighed. Then you leave me no choice, he motioned to the soldiers. Take her. And bring him in too. Alive if possible, Ethan moved fast. He grabbed the broken heater pipe beside him and swung it into the nearest soldier. The man fell hard. Lyra screamed as another soldier pulled her toward the door. Run, Lyra! Ethan shouted. She tried, but a stun bolt hit her shoulder. Her body went limp, glowing faintly as she fell. Ethan fired the fallen soldier's gun, hitting one man, then another. But Voss was already moving, quick, trained, merciless. He tackled Ethan, slamming him into the wall. Still protecting the enemy, Voss growled. How noble. How human. Ethan struggled, but Voss pressed a pistol to his chest. You had your chance, Cole. A sudden pulse of blue light filled the cabin. Both men froze. Lyra was awake, her eyes glowing brighter than ever. Her pendant had cracked open, releasing waves of energy. Stop, she screamed. The energy burst outward. The soldiers were thrown back. Windows shattered. The ground shook as if the earth itself was crying. When the light faded, only silence remained. Voss lay unconscious against the wall. The other soldiers were gone. Ethan crawled toward Lyra. She was on the floor, breathing fast, weak and pale. He pulled her close. You saved me again. Her voice was small. I didn't want to, it just happened. He brushed her hair gently. It's okay. You did what you had to. Lyra opened her eyes slowly. They'll keep coming, won't they? Ethan nodded. Yeah, they won't stop now. She looked at him with quiet sadness. Then where do we go? Ethan looked out at the dark forest, smoke rising in the distance. As far as we can, somewhere they'll never find us. He stood carrying her in his arms and stepped into the fading light. Behind them, the cabin burned. The war was not over. But something stronger than war had begun. Trust that no soldier could break. Rain fell softly over the forest, washing away the smoke and blood. The storm had passed, but the world still looked broken. Ethan carried Lyra through the thick trees, his uniform torn and soaked. She was weak, her head resting against his shoulder, her crystal pendant cracked and dim. They walked until dawn. The forest grew quieter, almost peaceful, with only the sound of water dripping from the leaves. When Ethan finally found a small observatory hidden beneath vines and moss, he pushed open the door. The old place smelled of rust and rain. He laid Lyra on a dusty couch and checked her pulse, faint but steady. Relief flooded him. You're safe, he whispered. Her eyes fluttered open. Ethan, where are we? An old observatory. My squad used it once as a recon post before the war ended, he said, wiping the rain from her face. No one will think to look here. Lyra looked weak but smiled softly. You never stop saving me. Ethan smiled back. Maybe it's the other way around. He sat beside her, lighting a small fire from broken furniture. The warm glow filled the small room, dancing on the cracked glass dome above. For a moment it felt like they were the last two living beings in the universe. Hours passed in silence. Lyra slept and Ethan watched the fire burn lower. His mind replayed everything, the chase, the attack, Colonel Voss's words. She's a weapon. She's not ready. But he had seen her cry. He had seen her laugh. No weapon could feel like that. He turned to her as she stirred. Lyra, he said softly. I need you to tell me the truth. What are you? She blinked slowly, her voice quiet. I don't know everything. But my mother told me once that I was made to heal, not destroy. Heal? Ethan frowned. Lyra touched the cracked pendant on her chest. This crystal is part of my mother's work. The Lyrans believed we could use our life energy to heal wounds, even heal planets. But when the humans found out, they thought it was a weapon. They feared what they didn't understand. Ethan's heart sank. So, we started the war? She nodded sadly. Your leaders thought we wanted to take your worlds. But my mother only wanted to share our energy, to stop both races from dying. Ethan stared into the fire, guilt washing over him. All the destruction, all the death, because of fear and lies. Lyra's voice trembled. When the war began, my mother hid me. She said humans would destroy her work. But she believed one of them, one with kind eyes, and would protect me. That was you. Ethan swallowed hard. She knew about me? Not your name, Lyra whispered. Only your heart. For a long time, Ethan couldn't speak. The only sound was the crackle of fire and the distant thunder outside. He finally said, Your mother was right. Humans destroyed what they didn't understand. We always do. Lyra touched his hand. Not you. He looked up. Her eyes glowed faintly, reflecting the stars visible through the cracked glass ceiling. You said your mother used songs to heal. Can you still do that? Maybe, she said weakly. But I need time. The crystal is broken, Ethan nodded. Rest then. I'll keep watch. He stood by the door, rifle ready, scanning the forest. But as the hours passed, something strange began to happen. The crystal on Lyra's chest started to glow again, slowly, softly. Ethan turned. Lyra? She sat up, her small frame surrounded by faint blue light. It's calling to something, she whispered. Someone is searching, Ethan frowned. Voss? She shook her head. No, this is different. It feels like home. Then the light grew brighter. The observatory's old machines flickered to life, screens glowing with alien symbols. The air hummed with quiet energy. Ethan stepped back. What's happening? Lyra pressed her hand to the screen. It's my mother's message. She left it for me. The screen changed. A faint image appeared, blurry but warm. It was a Lyran woman, gentle and kind, her voice soft as a lullaby. My daughter, if you are hearing this, it means I'm gone. But you are not alone. The humans fear us because they do not understand. Find one who listens. Together you can heal both our worlds. Trust the human with kind eyes. Lyra's tears fell as the image faded. She wanted peace. She believed in humans. Ethan's throat tightened. And we destroyed her world. No, Lyra said softly, touching his hand. You saved me. You are her hope. He looked at her, at the faint glow surrounding her. Not a weapon's light, but something alive, pure. Then I'll protect that hope, he said, no matter what it costs. Outside, lightning flashed through the trees. The radio on his belt suddenly buzzed, then static, then a voice. Colonel Voss to all units. The Lyran child is alive. Her signal just activated near the southern forest. Move out. Ethan's heart stopped. He looked at Lyra. She understood before he even spoke. They're coming, she whispered. He nodded, grabbing his gear. Then we run again. But this time we're not just running to survive. We're running to finish what your mother started. Lyra stood, light shining through the cracks in her crystal. Together? Ethan smiled. Together. And as they stepped out into the rain, the broken observatory behind them hummed one last time, sending a signal far into the stars. Someone out there had heard her mother's message. The forest was glowing under the rain. Drops fell like silver dust on leaves that shone faintly in the moonlight. Ethan and Lyra moved through the trees, their breath visible in the cold air. Behind them, the old observatory burned like a dying star. Every step was heavier than the last. Ethan's shoulder throbbed with pain, but he didn't stop. Lyra walked beside him, her cracked crystal glowing brighter than ever. Soft, blue, alive. They're close, she whispered. I know, Ethan said. We have to reach the valley. The signal from your mother might be calling someone, maybe someone who can help. Lyra looked up at him. And if it's not help? Ethan gave a tired smile. Then we make our own. They climbed a hill of black stone. From the top they could see the valley below, wide, silent, and covered in fog. The remains of an old human outpost lay there, rusted and broken. That's it, Ethan said. We can hide there. But before they could move, a loud roar filled the air. A human dropship descended through the clouds, its lights cutting through the darkness. Lyra gasped. They found us! Ethan grabbed her hand and pulled her toward the valley. The dropship opened fire, energy bolts tearing through the trees, shaking the ground. Run, he shouted. They raced down the hill, dodging debris and fallen branches. Fire spread across the forest floor. Drones poured out from the ship, glowing red like angry eyes. Ethan turned and fired, hitting one drone, then another. The rest circled around them like predators. Ethan, Lyra cried, pointing upward. Another ship was descending, smaller, smoother, and glowing blue instead of red. He stared in disbelief. That's not human. The new ship landed between them and the attackers. A wave of light spread from it, cutting off the drone's signals. They dropped like stones. The ship's door opened and figures stepped out, tall, silver-skinned Lyrans. One of them wore the same pendant as Lyra. Ethan lowered his weapon slowly. They came for you. Lyra's eyes filled with tears. They heard my mother's message. A Lyran woman stepped forward, her voice calm and deep. Child of the healer, you have survived. The song reached us through the human's radio waves. You carried her light well. Lyra ran to her but stopped halfway and looked back at Ethan. I don't want to leave him. The Lyran woman's eyes softened. He is not your kind, Lyra. You belong with us. Ethan's chest tightened. He wanted to say something, but words felt too small. He knew she'd be safer with her people. He knew it was right, but it didn't feel right. Lyra walked back to him slowly. Ethan, I don't want to go. He knelt down so they were face to face. You have to. They can protect you. Your mother wanted peace, and you can finish her dream. Lyra shook her head, tears glimmering. But what about you? He smiled, tired but warm. I'll survive. Humans always do. She pressed her glowing crystal into his hands. Then take this. So I'll never be far. He looked down at it, the cracked pendant now pulsing faintly with life. It belongs to you. It belongs to us, she whispered. You're part of it now. Suddenly, a sharp sound filled the air, another dropship, larger, descending fast. Ethan recognized the symbol on it. Voss, he muttered. He's not giving up. The sky exploded with light as the new ship fired. Trees burned. The Lyran ship's shields flared. Voss's voice echoed over the speakers. Surrender the alien, Cole. Or die with her. Ethan grabbed Lyra's shoulders. Go, get on their ship. No, she shouted. I can stop him. Her crystal glowed brighter, flooding the valley with blue light. The air shimmered. Ethan tried to pull her back, but she stood firm. Lyra, no! She turned to him, smiling through tears. My mother's power heals, not kills. I can end this. The light spread outward, washing over everything, the drones, the ships, the fire. The explosion stopped. The metal melted into silence. When it was over, the sky cleared. The human ship was gone, disarmed, silent, floating lifelessly. Voss's voice was gone too. Lyra fell forward, weak and pale. Ethan caught her before she hit the ground. Hey, stay with me, he whispered. She smiled faintly. No more running. He held her close. You did it. You saved us all. Her eyes began to close. Can I stay with you now? Ethan's voice broke. You can stay forever. The crystal between them glowed one last time, brighter than the stars. The forest around them came alive, green again, peaceful again. When the Lyran ship finally took off, it left behind only silence, and a man sitting under the trees with a faint blue light in his hands. Years later, soldiers would find that valley, now full of life. Flowers grew where bombs had fallen. The trees whispered in strange tones when the wind blew, and in the middle of it all stood a small memorial stone, carved with 2 words in both human and Lyran. She stayed.